slow piece is the one thing. It's also, of course, the loss and frustration to the staff. You know, they can't access the internet, or they can't access the products that they need to use to send and receive CVs with, drives them insane. And we come across that every single time when we take on a new client, because unfortunately the machines are not maintained well. So if even like you said, this person had a new machine, the problem is the person bought the new machine, they set up Office, they set up whatever the back office software they're using, and they never ever, what I call, clean the machine up to start with. So there are so many freeware and what we call bloatware software that the manufacturers install, whether it's HP, Fujitsu, Dell, you name it. They put as much rubbish as they possibly can because they want to try and advertise onto the machine, and then you start using the machine and just find it's getting slower, slower, slower. So the first thing you need to do always is to remove anything that says Norton, anything Symantec or McAfee, because they've got a lot of free tools which inherently sits in the background, constantly running, and makes the machine slow. The second thing as well that a lot of people do, whenever you install any piece of software, it always, 95% of the time, it creates an entry in what we call the startup folder or the startup process. So when the machine starts up, it loads all the software. A big one for me is the iTunes. Now, iTunes, it slows machines down, especially Windows machines, tremendously. I'm not saying don't use iTunes. I'm saying don't let it start up automatically when the machine boots up, because what you can do when you plug your iPhone in, at that point you can start iTunes up. But by removing all these things and making sure you're using antivirus software that doesn't take up a lot of footprint or doesn't use a lot of memory on the machine, again, it makes the machines faster. The other thing, of course, is now you've cleaned the machine up, doesn't mean that it's going to run well forever. Like a car, you've got to constantly maintain it. So we, for instance, maintain all our clients' PCs every single Monday night. We start at 6 p.m. in the evening, and we normally finish by 2 a.m. the next morning. But by doing that, we go through this whole cleanup process every single week. And of course, by doing that, guess what? You keep the machine running as fast as possible. The cost saving is phenomenal. I mean, we've done some, we've got clients all over the world, but if I give you an example just in the UK, for instance, I mean, if you look at the typical wage nowadays of, say, that's about £23,500 per person per year, most people, we find, have at least an hour's worth of delays or problems with their PCs in a week. And that adds up phenomenally, because if you base it on the time lost, the net loss to the business in the UK equates to £750 per user per year. So that's $7.5 grand just for a small 10-user company. You know, so imagine that's time and a half for if you're running a similar business, you know, in the States, double that amount if you run it in South Africa. It is phenomenal. But like I said, it's the money loss and, of course, the frustration. And the frustration is what makes your staff more and more and more unproductive. So, you know, the money, if you can get this stuff cleaned up and working well, the benefits to the business, you know, pays for itself. It almost buys a new PC, the way I see it, you know, every year in lost revenues. They should be. They should be. But what we find, unfortunately, that a lot of, you know, small company, let's call them IT people that look after small IT companies, unfortunately, they just don't have the experience that say, a larger IT support company like us would have. Not because of their own fault, it's because they just don't have the exposure. So they don't know about, unless they constantly, I worked it out once, you need to be out of the office for 11 weeks of the year to be able to maintain your knowledge on how to maintain and manage a network properly and keep it clean. That's number one. Number two, of course, depending on the owner, he's not going to allow you to spend 12 or 15 or 20,000 pounds on management software that you can install to automate the processes to keep the network running properly. So what happens? You do it for the first week, maybe the first month, the second month, third month, you think, wow, okay, this takes a long time. Because if you've got 50 machines and you've got to go around each machine manually to do updates or even just do the day-to-day cleanups, after a while you lose the will to live. So that's why we love to work with similar people in that kind of environment, because at least they can use our tools and help them to, you know, do their job properly without stepping on their toes.